Okay, yeah, this is all we do expect today. Didn't have any other staff members or members of the public that were really expected, but it is of course an open meeting. So it is two. This is your first meeting of the year, so there isn't a chairperson that's in effect as of the moment. But I just suggest that we take roll for the minutes and.
Okay. Directors Fardanish.
Here.
And Logan.
Here.
And then the first item on the agenda is the appointment of the chair and vice chair for the year.
Okay. I'll nominate Director Fardanish. Since I've taken the chair position for the Fire and Emergency Services and then also for the board. So if you would accept that nomination.
All right, that's good. Then I guess I'll nominate you for vice chair. All right.
Okay, good deal.
Okay, so all right, let's go ahead to the item agenda item for order control.
Okay, I just want to provide just a little bit of background on this item. Maybe a 8-year history or something. I can't speak to what we've done prior to that, but so prior to the East Side Force Main project coming online about 3 years ago, the district's odor-related complaints in areas of concern really centered around the Shane Lane, the Bennett Drive near Vineyard area, kind of the sort of very tail end of the collection system. And so we installed, to try to mitigate that problem, we installed a blower at the wastewater plant. We've since upgraded that and relocated it, but we used that's been in place and still is, to try to alleviate some of the odor complaints or concerns in that sort of small neighborhood right close to Vineyard and Bennett. Kind of a fairly low number of houses in that area, but we did have some odor complaints several years ago. When the East Side Force Main project came online, we started noticing odors elsewhere in the collection system that were not present prior to that project coming online, particularly near the Chevron station and just down, I'll say downstream of there, closer to Los Tablas and Bennett, another place in Bennett, but right near the Los Tablas and Bennett intersection, close to the West Side lift station location. You might recall about 2 years and 2 months ago or so, somewhere in that vicinity, we brought to the board an item dealing with odor control in that vicinity. And ultimately the board approved an arrangement, or the lease, actually, a 3-year lease for a system that I'll just casually call an air scrubber. It looks like a tank. It's visible from the street. It sits in the property, the fence compound where the West Side lift station is. And it has a vacuum, a pump that sucks air out of the lift station itself. But because the lift station and the pipeline that connects it is all one, it effectively sucks air from the end of the force main through that last section of the lift, last section of the collection system, including the lift station, and it pulls this air through this tank. The tank has some media in it that is designed to absorb these odors. And because we did that because we had these new source of odors, new location of odors, and complaints. That worked really well as far as reducing the complaints and the odors for the first year or so. So and we had that installed, I believe, right at 2 years ago, May of 2020. That's when that unit went online, or within a month of there. So about 2 years ago. So that worked pretty well as far as I know for a year to a year and a half. Late last summer, we started getting some more noticeable odors. We weren't feeling complaints necessarily in the office, but I was, a couple people that I know was telling, hey, that it's getting stinky over there again. What are you going to do about it? That kind of thing. So we started looking into the odors at the time, and we kind of believed that the system wasn't working as well as it had originally. Frank Sprague thought our agreement included the exchange of the media one time during this 3-year lease period. And, but that wasn't the case. So the agreement was for 3 years to use the equipment, and it was thought, based on some calculations and measurements that were taken, that the unit the media would last 3 years. Basically, it's like, it doesn't last indefinitely. The media itself absorbs only so much of this material, and then it becomes less and less effective. So as the months have gone on, that problem has kind of become worse, and I think it's our impression that the system is just is sort of declining in its effectiveness. I don't know to what degree. I don't know if it's half as effective as it once was, or a third, but it's not working as well as it did. So we started looking at what are our options, and once we learned that, you know, hey, we don't get an exchange of this material, we would have to actually pay for new media material to come in, and that's somewhere in the tune of like $38,000 as of the end of last year. Is that about right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So it costs about as much to get the media replaced as it did to lease the equipment with fresh media initially. And it's a pretty simple system, really. It's a, you know, there's not a lot going on there.
Is media, is it a filter that you're talking about?
Activated carbon?
It's a two-stage media filter inside of the container, the tank out there.
Okay.
So
and where are we at in the lease?
So we're 2 years into the 3 years. Yeah, 2 years into the 3-year arrangement. So we started. So Justin released, started looking at other options. We knew at the time when we did this two years ago that there were other options available. They just weren't deemed very desirable. There's other chemicals that we knew of at the time that could be added, but there were concerns about employee safety. There were concerns about their corrosiveness to the infrastructure, and we might be masking one problem and creating a whole other one, or a worse one than we already are. We know this odor is really a byproduct of a corrosive material already. So the fact that we have it isn't a good sign for our collection system to begin with. So Justin started looking into other options pretty much right after you got here. So is it fair to say like January or something?
Yes.
Okay. So that's my background, and I'll turn it over to Justin to kind of describe what he knows about what we have and how we arrived at how we have this proposal in front of us now.
Yeah, thank you. So being out in front of it early in January, we wanted to understand the system, have a better understanding of where the sulfides are coming from, test the system to see where there's greater levels of sulfides, and just for the sake of it, sulfates are something that are naturally occurring inside of our groundwater and in the source water. Bacteria, aerobic bacteria, convert that sulfate into sulfide. There's another bacteria that then converts that into hydrogen sulfide gas, and then bacteria that ultimately change that into sulfuric acid. And that's what I wanted to really understand is, where is this happening through the system? We wanted to understand where this is happening in the system, and then why is the media scrubber maybe not being as effective, and where do we go from here? Recommendations from the company that makes the air scrubber, and are there other options that we can identify and research that would help the system in a better way? So we had the system tested, and that starts basically from the Main Street sewer main that goes down to the north, down to lift station 3. And we found that in that rather flat, larger sewer main, that's where the problem starts to originate inside of that sewer main. So that's where you get the first insight into those sulfate compounds, bacteria doing what they do and turning it into sulfides. It's compounded once those waters are forced in that force main, and they go gravity. The waters go gravity at around the Chevron station kind of area on Las Tablas. From there, they go down to the water goes to West Side Lift Station. Again, through Forest Main, the problem just compounds on itself until you get to the outfall on Bennett and then down to the wastewater treatment plant. And to just point, as far as like lower down at the wastewater treatment plant, the air scrubber that we have at West Side, also to add to those, we're also trying to protect our sewer manholes by lining and coating them. There's a project going on right now to coat and line and protect the rehab those manholes that are on Bennett Way, and that's a significant cost as well. The piping and the coatings in our lift stations, all the bracketry, all the different components that are through the system are corroded by the sulfuric acid, by these different bacteria creating this condition in the sewer system. So once we assessed and found the levels of sulfides that we have inside of the system, we sent those to the company that we have. The Patriot scrubber is the name of the air scrubber that we have. And they recommended with our results being so high, we would be signing up with them on an annual basis to the tune of, $38,000 plus. And even if we were able to get some additional lifespan out of it, that would be their seal. That's what they would recommend in their proposal. It's just be signing up for them with them and getting this changed up, new media every year, because the sulfides are elevated. They're in higher concentration than they once were, perhaps. Regardless, they're higher now. And with the testing that we have, the results that we have now, it speaks to changing out that scrubber on an annual basis.
If you change out the scrubber, does that just mask the problem, or does it actually getting rid of the sulfuric acid, so that way it will help improve the durability of our infrastructure? So the primary issue is absolutely the corrosion through the collection system. And so something like the air scrubber at West Side helps deal with a byproduct of that corrosive atmosphere and that H2S gas. And so we would help the community in the nearby area to not experience those nuisance odors. But still, at the end of the day, throughout the day, through year after year, we would still be having our collection system deteriorate. And back to even the coatings that we're about to embark on, 13 manholes, I believe we're going to coat. The life expectancy of even those coatings are cut in half because of the corrosiveness. Even they're not going to be able to hold up to that atmosphere for the full life expectancy that you would normally be. You'd be hoping for 5-10 years, and you're going to have that cut in half by the sulfides that are inside of the system. So do we have this problem prior?
So the reason, I think we had the same wastewater, right? Nothing magic happened with our wastewater with the Eastside Forest Main project, but it wasn't really our problem. It flowed to Paso Robles. Okay. So we didn't deal with this wastewater at the age that so this gets worse over time, right? If whatever's happening here on Main Street, the flush occurred and it immediately went to the wastewater plant, no problem. It isn't time for the process to start. But the longer this sits in the system, the wastewater begins to break down. We're starting to get treatment in the pipeline, right? And then at the lift station. And so right now, that lift station is a lot larger than it used to be as well. So we have a lot more time between when the wastewater is generated right here, like in this building, and it goes that way before it gets to the wastewater plant. It used to be it would go that way, and then it would just go to Paso Robles. Yeah. They had some odor complaints too. I'm not sure. I'm not as involved, but I think they blamed some of their problems on our wastewater, and maybe maybe as we understand it better now, maybe there was some validity to that. Okay. So I don't know if their odor problems are gone, but they were dealing with some challenges at some lift station sites and things like that when we were in their system. We removed ourselves, and so their system changed quite a bit, at least on that side, the south side of town.
So once we went through that testing, we really understood it's a system wide. It's very apparent by the time you get to lift station 3, and then all the way through to more or less the headworks of Meadowbrook. And so in the last time, I believe that we were about 2 years ago, it was maybe discussed as ferrous chloride is a compound that we could be administering. There's significant drawbacks to it. All of these compounds are about the same cost for them to administer them, but ferrous chloride is incredibly corrosive. And so then I could see why at that time that we didn't move forward with ferrous chloride, the addition of ferrous chloride. Slaked lime is another option, or calcium hydroxide. The problem with that compound is it likes to solidify in the collection system after it is administered. And so you can actually have overflows, sewers.
That's a problem.
Yeah, in the system due to the clogging up the pipe work. And so, I firsthand have had experience, unfortunately, with this.
So is the vendor that we're leasing from, is that vendor coming up with these solutions? So do we have a consultant that we're seeking kind of direction in terms of the options? Because I agree with Director Fradonish is, you know, the odors really kind of secondary to the corrosiveness, because that's just going to add more problems. But the odor is really a symptom of a bigger problem. So I'm just wondering how we're going about in getting kind of the right solution to address the problem, both problems, the corrosiveness and then the odor.
I don't know that we have partnered up with a consultant and looked at various options, compounds.
I think not this go around. I think initially Rob Miller was involved in assisting us with some of the evaluation, and that was one of the—
With the Wallace Group. And so this recent would serve it over the years, looking at dealing with odors, and they're very difficult to work with. I mean, to find a solution and kind of a once and for all and never have to deal with odors again in your collection system. But bioxide made by Evoqua is one that doesn't have the adverse sort of effects that the other compounds have. And in my experiences in working with consultants, it's highly recommended and effective. Whereas the other ones, ferrous chloride and calcium hydroxide, may be effective either directly or in a passive sort of way, but they have these these large downsides, like being corrosive and or causing overflows in the collection system. And so I invited Evoqua to come down and to assess our system as well and do some testings and then provide a proposal, something that would be effective and take care of protect our system. First and foremost, kind of the primary issue is corrosiveness that's going on. And then a byproduct, I guess, of that would be that we wouldn't have odor complaints. We wouldn't be affecting our constituents with these noxious odors, these nuisance odors. So Evoqua, I have the utmost confidence that their product bioxide is the go-to compound.
What is bioxide?
Yeah, so they make, Evoqua makes it themselves. It's kind of a proprietary compound. And so the way that it works is, so it in two ways, it deals with the sulfides. It first and foremost, it provides a source of oxygen for the aerobic bacteria to feed on rather than feeding on the sulfates compounds and getting the oxygen from those sources. Secondly, it's a strong oxidizer. So not necessarily like chlorine to the extent that chlorine or hydrogen peroxide is necessarily, but it also oxidizes directly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's safe for our
Yes.
staff to use?
Yeah, it's safe for our staff to use, and it doesn't have those other adverse types of those drawbacks that I mentioned earlier, but it doesn't add anything to our system either that would deter us from using it. It's not going to increase our TDS or BOD or TSS or anything along those lines. The system is supposed to be, the compound is supposed to be administered so that it's used up in the course of being in the collection system. And so there is nothing on the tail end that we should receive. And it's set up so that everything is used up in the collection system. And so we don't see that in our treatment plant, in Selby, and on our percolation field. That.
So you said, is it safe? I mean, it's, so what we have right now is sort of hands-off kind of arrangement, right? We've got a simple system that's pumping, creating a vacuum. And so we're not adding any chemicals. It's really, this system does have some requirements. It does have to have an eye wash station. I mean, this isn't, it does require some precautions, but it's not adding risks that our crew isn't already used to. We have those same requirements every time we deal with hydrogen, our chlorine at our well sites, for example. So the staff that we working, this system would be installed inside the gated compound. I don't know if that's the right term, the fence line at the lift station 3. So it's not out where the public would encounter it. But it's not. It does have some requirements for handling and for safety. So, but we don't think those requirements are any more rigorous or present any risks that don't already exist that our employees have to deal with already.
And this would protect then the collection system from lift station 3 all the way through to Meadowbrook. Okay. Yeah.
And it's for 3 years.
So we want to talk about this because it's kind of complicated. This is like our third proposal I think that we've received because the originally when Justin brought this forward to internally when we started looking at this, they had proposed a lease arrangement where we would pay them a one-time fee to install it. We would lease the equipment as we used it. They would come here monthly to do some testing and to kind of dial it in because it's all based on the background water and those kind of things, dial it in. And they would be testing monthly, provide service monthly, and we buy the chemical as the demand called for it. It's not a set it and forget it kind of arrangement. It needs to be adjusted based on the background wastewater strength, constituents and flows and those kind of things. So, but the costs for that lease were pretty high. I don't remember offhand, but we have that information if it's something they want to consider. So we asked, Justin asked them, hey, can you come up with a system where we own the equipment and basically just get, so we lower our ongoing costs. And so this proposal, the one you're looking at here, or the one that we included with the packet, has us essentially buying the equipment. That's this roughly $108,000, $109,000, right? That's the equipment we would own, and there's their cost for installing it. So it's about $109,000 out of pocket. We would own that. That should, that's not a 3-year arrangement. That's ours. We would have to pay them to remove it, or we have to pay someone to remove it when the time came, if we didn't want to keep it any longer. What is part of the 3-year arrangement is this servicing and agreement to purchase the product to use in the equipment. So that in this proposal,
Okay, you said that. What is this for use of the equipment?
we would own the equipment, but we'd have to buy the chemical.
Oh, the chemical.
Yeah, there's two components. There's the chemical itself, which right now is estimated to cost us about 50 grand a year, ballpark, right? On top of that, right? And that would be ongoing, the requirement annually. Justin seems to think that, or Justin believes that after we get this dialed in, there may be some opportunities to use less chemicals certain times a year, and we could see that cost maybe $50,000 is on the high side. And once we get it dialed in, our actual experience will be a little bit lower. But we can't control the chemical prices. This is we can't get the chemical from another source. So that's a factor. The other issue is we've asked them to change the proposal, instead of coming monthly, to come quarterly, because the cost is pretty high. Their visits, like it's a one-day visit, but it's like $2,700. So we were hoping, or our hope is that we can get it dialed in initially and then have less frequent visits, not require our staff could do some of the testing. They would still come quarterly. And then perhaps even in year 2 and 3 of this arrangement, we can even reduce that further and save some funds. So, but initially speaking, it's along the lines of about $63,000 in ongoing costs and $109,000 in one-time costs. So we're in it for a more expensive solution. It's a more comprehensive solution, but a more expensive solution than we were in on the air scrubber. We thought that was like 40 grand for 3 years. Let's call it, $13,000 a year plus or minus. Well, as it turns out that didn't work for 3 years. So it's more like maybe $38,000 a year. So if that's our only solution. So looking at this, this provides some additional benefits to the district. If this gets dialed in, ideally, it can eliminate the odor issues, not only where the air scrubber is now, where we had I guess I'll call them the more recent odor issues in that vicinity, because we didn't have those before. And as long as there's not sufficient amount of this agent left by the time the west side lift station discharges up at Bennett near Vineyard, we might eliminate that challenge too. There might be some other benefits, like we could even potentially eliminate the blower that's at the wastewater plant, which is a source of a lot of foul odors. I mean, I think occasionally we get odors from that blower on Highway 101.
So have we looked at any other agencies that are using this particular solution?
There's, and I can get a list from the manufacturer.
But have you talked to them to see,
yes,
how, because I'd be curious to know if they've also taken the same approach, if any of them have purchased the equipment and then just gone with the service contract to service it. And over time, do your assumptions hold out that it would be less service? Initially upfront loaded, maybe perhaps monthly service, and then going back to quarterly.
Well, they originally proposed monthly. We asked for this to be revised to show quarterly, because the cost is really high. These folks are coming from a long ways away, and it was going to cost us another, say, $2,700, 8 times a year to have it monthly. So that'd be another, 35 grand or something.
Well, I'm just concerned if we've got a lease arrangement that was for 3 years, and now we're finding that after 2 years, it's not the solution.
It's a different kind of thing, though. That this that 3-year life expectancy was how long it was estimated it would take before the media was no longer effective. It was a known. It was going to last X amount of time. Based on the strength of the wastewater and the constituents,
which we didn't know.
Well, which we estimated, but we were off on. Yeah. So this is different. This we know we have to continue to add the agent to the. This isn't. It's kind of working just the opposite, maybe I would say. Rather than drawing out these gases and then filtering them out, this is adding a chemical to the water on a like a drip basis, right? Yeah. This would drip. It would set at a metered rate, and then we would use that. So we're actually using chemical up. The equipment itself can last, they're going to come refill this thing every time it's needed. We have to buy it in 2000. I can't remember it says
my
here.
point is that it's a costly solution, and I want to make sure that it's the solution and whether or not there's feedback from people who are already using it.
Yeah, because we don't want to invest the money and then find out a year or two that the chemical is not sufficient to handle the odor.
Or that there's other issues that we don't know about. So it would just be a way of validating, this is good, because, I mean, this is who we're getting currently the filtration from, right? No. Okay,
No,
so this is a vendor we're not using at all, which would be another reason to talk to other agencies that use this vendor to see, if there's any issues with this vendor and their services, because that's really what we would be entering into is a service contract with them.
Yeah, well, we're entering into kind of two things. One is the purchase. Of the equipment. We're in it for $109,000, and then we have an obligation to use them for services for this 3-year period. And really, the intent would be much longer than that. It wouldn't make sense to buy this if we thought it was going to work for 3 years. So, but if it's going to work for 10 years, this is a more cost-effective solution. So we'd be buying the chemical from them and getting the services from them. And there isn't an this is a proprietary system. There isn't we can't shop the open market for this chemical.
Yeah. Understood.
Yeah, and the downside of these, they're all similar, again, these compounds, dealing with the system in a holistic sort of approach, the system-wide. These compounds are administered the same sorts of equipment to administer them. This is the one that doesn't have some of the drawbacks as the other ones do. They're either much more corrosive or they can plug your collection system, so on and so forth. I have spoken to agencies, customers of Evoqua. I've been over the years in my past, the agency that I worked for had a multitude of different meetings and had gone through testings with them, and I've known about them for several years as a go-to to deal with these sorts of issues. I can go back through and make some contacts and provide some feedback again. But I know this company in this compound as the compound to use in your collection system to deal with that corrosivity, that corrosiveness atmosphere, and dealing with odor complaints, which is kind of the byproduct of. Yeah.
So I think our options are the reason we timed this meeting the way we did is we were just trying to dial in this proposal. It's taken a long. First of all, I think I want to make sure businesses don't care about our business. We're begging for proposal. They really just couldn't care less if we call them back. And I'm not talking about just Evoqua, anybody. You're probably experiencing that on your own. It's just a very big change in terms of so it's very difficult to get information. These folks took months just to make very minor tweaks to the proposal, and then Justin asked for another one here more recently. And they just said no. It's just it's not take it or leave it, but we're not dedicating that kind of effort to get your business at this point. So it's hard to get these proposals. So the reason we had this meeting today is we've programmed in the budget for next year. This is the budget that you're going to review. It's posted online, so it's actually public now. But this is the draft that you're going to review next week on Tuesday during the board workshop. We've programmed sufficient funds in the chemical line item to deal with the service component and that's that quarterly service and the chemical itself. But we have not programmed money for the capital costs because, quite frankly, we didn't know that until later. The service costs really didn't change. The capital costs, they originally gave us a quote for leasing, and we wanted to examine this other option. So if this committee was on board with the solution, we would want to amend this prior to Tuesday to include that so that we have a solution going forward. If you're not on board with this by then, or you want to keep your options open, we think we have a worsening odor problem. We can't just do nothing. We're at the point where we need to replace that media. And that's going to cost us about $38,000. We will have enough money to do so and the way the budget's drafted now, but we won't, that's going to be a Band-Aid, and that's going to last us a year to a year and a half. So you could do, but I think doing nothing is gonna be not an option.
Well,
Since odors are getting worse.
yeah, and I think we have to do something, but here's my question. If they're not willing and don't have the time to deal with, any kind of adjustments to the proposals, what's their time frame for installation?
I believe it was 2 months.
Yeah, it's in the proposal.
Yeah, I believe so. And one of the reasons why the recent inquiry to make modifications to the language specifically, and I can't add a sentence saying this or that. They said to open it back up again because there's been costs keep increasing across the board for everything. It would kind of bring it back for review, and possibly those capital costs could increase where right now they're kind of locked in. Right now they are locked in right now through till the new fiscal year starts, but to bring that back before their team and make revisions to the language would open us back up to having those costs change and increase.
You mean in terms of their contract?
In their
capital.
The 109,000.
Oh, the 109,000.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so
that opens that up.
Their proposal says this is 15 to 19 weeks from the time we give them a go. They're gonna give us a schematic about how this is gonna line up, which is gonna be pretty simple. We know what there's room at the lift station site to put this, but we're gonna have to run we might have to have some electrical work done somewhere, and we'll have to add, like I think you said, an ice station that we have to develop. And then once we give them the go ahead on how it's all going to be placed, they're 12 to 14 weeks to deliver the equipment. So we're looking at what's that? 19 weeks, 20 weeks, 5 months, 4 to 5 months before it's here. So I guess what I'm saying is, so if you're 4 to 5 months from the time you give them the go ahead, then we're and I think that's okay, as long as it's a plan. I mean, I could probably communicate to the public, and we could, that we're leaving the air scrubber online. We know it got a diminishing return, and we have a new solution on the way. It's 5 months out. But if we're not ready to proceed on this, then I would want to amend than want to replace the media, because it's a source of complaints, and I think that's something we don't want to have. And if you do that, it's probably going to last, at least the odor issue is probably going to be resolved for a year to 18 months. So this will
go higher. The price of this will go
higher.
higher.
It could go higher, or it could be postponed or whatever. But I don't want to spend money on both.
So
if we can help it.
So we don't have an interim solution. If we go with this proposal, there is no interim solution unless we incur additional expenses.
Unless we replace the media in the air filter
for short term.
Yeah.
So
it's like, that's 38 grand for,
I have a couple of questions. One is, so does the cost of equipment, can we use that? We use the impact fee on that because we could consider a new connection
I would,
like that?
On the surface, I'd say no, because it's not adding to our capacity. Now, if this were, it's not adding to the capacity of the collection system or the treatment system. So we're not able to serve more people because we have this.
We need to have it to be able to serve more people.
Yeah, but that's not where we're purchasing.
I mean, there's this sort of principle in the Mitigation Fee Act that you can't use impact fees to solve an existing shortcoming.
Okay.
So, and this really isn't a capacity issue. As a matter of fact, I mean, one could argue, it's a poor argument, but you could argue that if we were much bigger, this problem might not exist. This problem is it's a byproduct of time, detention time. If this stuff was circulating much more quickly, it wouldn't be as bad.
That would be my next question. That was my next question. Is there any way we could increase the rate of flow in the pipelines by putting pump or something like that in various spots?
So I don't know. I mean, the system is designed there's detention time in multiple places. In the pipeline itself, it takes a while for the flows to get from here to the lift station. That's not going to change unless there was actually more flow.
But if it's flat, and then that's why it's not flowing, right? It could be like if it has a little more gravity to it, then it would go faster, right? So if you put a pump somehow. To push it along.
Push it along.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, theoretically, yes, you could do that, but there's also this detention in the lift station itself. And this is cyclical, right? That sometimes during the peak times of the day, it's cycling on and off frequently, like early mornings and evenings when we have high flow rates. And then overnight, it would slow down. I mean, normally it would slow down considerably. It might go in 1 hour, you might get as much flow during a peak time as you get all night long, 8 or 10 hours. Because we don't have a lot of, wastewater activity during the night. Typically, actually, I don't know what that's like, because we do have some industrial uses, but so typically it would be a lot slower during the evening.
So, and that's the same station that we have possibly could have overflow problems with it, right? Like if it was raining too much or something like that, things could overflow there. Is that, if I remember something about one of our meetings?
The West Side lift station is the one that we've talked about having the constraint on.
So
But any of them, yeah, they all have it. They all have it.
area.
No, the lift station 3 is over by.
It's the West Side Force, because we talked about that in September.
Okay, so it's different.
So I think the location of the odor control is at the West Side lift station, because that's ahead of where that's flowing and the odor is being observed or experienced. But you're right, the West Side lift station is where we were having some potential overflow issues, but the odor control itself will go at the West Side lift station. And I think one of the problems that we're experiencing is that there's so many segments that have long detention time before it gets to that final spot, that that's a lot of what we're experiencing.
Yeah, so like it's getting really into the weeds here, but if there's like this little condo complex over here off of Main Street across from the middle of the middle school. Okay, if you flush the toilet there, it goes into the lift station that's down by what we call high school lift station, which isn't high school, but the school lift station on Main Street. It's right. It's just behind the middle school, so it's going to sit there for however long it takes before that. That's if it happens to land when the thing's empty, it's going to take all day to fill up. So now it's there for 4, 6, 8 hours. Then it pumps just up the hill, hits Main Street, right? Then it's going to gravity all the way to lift station 3, which is about three miles away at that point. It's quite a ways, right? I mean, 2 miles. Is that right? It's a good distance. It's going to gravity from over here all the way down. Now the lift station 3 site. You remember that's where we had the ribbon cutting for the. Okay, so that's way off of Ramada.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the new enlarged lift station, right? That was the biggest change for the project was done there.
Yeah.
So that's a big, vast area. So it could be there for hours more before the pump kicks on again. And so that time, we could, and then it's pumped, and the pipeline that it's pumped in is really long. The force main is at least a mile. So it could be in that force main for hours if it goes through several pump cycles, because the pipeline itself has a certain capacity, and then it discharges and it flows a fairly short distance, only maybe 300 yards or something like that to the West Side lift station. It's not very far by gravity. And then it'll sit there for however much longer again, although that one cycles on and off a lot more often because it's a smaller lift station and it's collecting everything in the district almost. And then eventually to the wastewater plant. So it's conceivable that by the time it gets to the West Side lift station, it's already in the day-old wastewater, at least if it was generated at that facility. Now, it does not always, right? Because if the timing hits out just right, it might only be a few hours old.
Put a T and shoot directly.
So in other words, we have to do something.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So it's really probably not a way to have our wastewater stop creating these nuisances or this concern. So I mean, I would be very disappointed if we go down this road and 3 years later decide that it wasn't our solution, because that was a pretty expensive effort. But if this equipment lasts 10 or 15 years and it works for us for 10 or 15 years, this is a more comprehensive solution than the air scrubber at maybe 50% more per year once we get past the capital costs. Because we know the air scrubber is along the lines of 40 grand a year, and that's kind of a Band-Aid. Was really gonna just take care of the odor control. And even then it's not fully comprehensive. It's, it's most of the collection system, but it's not or most of the odor problems. This should be more comprehensive if it gets dialed in right? I mean, it has the potential of having broader benefits.
This will take care of the corrosion problem, which that could cost us a lot of money, which already probably is, right?
Yeah, we're starting those manhole projects, and we have more slated for next year. That's just going to keep growing.
Time and money. Yeah, I mean, if it works, I'm okay with moving forward with it. So, I mean, I do agree, maybe if we make sure we have the reference, you're comfortable and do more research on it.
Yeah.
And then.
Is that something, Justin, you think you could do between now and Tuesday? Talk to some clients who are using this product.
Yeah, just to make sure.
Yes.
Yeah, otherwise I'm also in agreement with this solution.
Okay, so let's do this if it's okay with you. We would, as I mentioned, we have enough money in the draft budget to cover the ongoing cost, the chemical cost and the servicing. We would program in the additional roughly 109,000 as a one-time expense in the wastewater fund. Then we can discuss that further on Tuesday, because we'll have an update to the budget to be handed out on Tuesday or sometime prior to Tuesday. Then by then, Justin will have had some references with the folks that use this particular product, have a greater sense of confidence. We know that we're kind of signing up for like 100 and, it's really a 3-year deal too. So, it's a couple $100,000 over these 3 years. It's a more expensive solution. It's just unfortunate we tried the air scrubber. That was kind of a low risk. It was very low risk, but it's not $40,000 every 3 years. It's more like $40,000 every year.
Yeah, it smells pretty bad right now.
So, but we want to move forward because our plan is to leave it on. We do think it's making a difference. If we test the air pre-air scrubber, intake air, it's worse than the air coming out of the exhaust of the air scrubber, but it's not as effective as it once was. So I still think it's valuable to have it on.
Okay.
And our plan then would be to just run it until this thing's in, and maybe even longer than that. But just keep in mind our odor control, our odor complaints are probably going to get a little worse over the next 5 months or so, 5-6 months until this is delivered.
Okay.
And
hopefully with the wind dying down, maybe it won't smell as bad. It won't travel as much. Because
it'll be really nasty for the people who are right there.
I don't want to be.
We're leasing that equipment that it's not being maintained, because to me that seems like a maintenance issue.
Well, the cost of the equipment is the media. The tank is really simple. It's just a plastic. There's not much to it. It's a fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say it like that, but it's not very complicated. It doesn't need a lot of maintenance. It needs to be the filter needs to be replaced when it's no longer used.
But that would, I would think, since we're leasing the equipment, that would be inclusive of that.
Yeah, it's a one-time, like, if you have to replace the media during the course of the lease, that's on you.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of like saying leasing a car, but when it runs out of gas, that's on you.
You gotta fill it on, yeah.
Okay. All right, is there enough direction on this item? You feel comfortable?
Feel good about it?
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. So next one, urban water management plan. How exciting.
I'm glad you think so.
Like that enthusiasm.
We wanted to kind of just, I know this came up at a recent board meeting, and so the inquiry was, are we getting close to needing to be one? And the question was timely, because this is a topic we've been kind of studying. And yes, the short answer is yes, we're getting close, and we're trying to be creative, but we're not having a lot of luck. Yeah. So Tina's done the research on this, and I've asked her just kind of to walk the committee through what does it mean to be in, when do we hit that trigger point, and what are the requirements, what changes going forward?
Yeah, it was very interesting. Actually, just a couple of days ago, I came across an article that was talking about urban water management and the districts that have more than 3,000 account, where the state is now, mandating them to go into level 2
yes.
restrictions and things like that. Oh, wow, we'll have to end up having less control.
Yes, well, we'll have a lot closer tie.
Yeah, to the state. So, but yeah, so I'm looking forward to hearing about what exactly it means.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, the additional responsiveness to the drought mandates and the state requirements are probably the biggest change that we'll see. The California Water Code is the place where the requirement for the urban water management plan exists. The definition of an urban water supplier is a supplier that either supplies over 3,000 customers or supplies over 3,000 acre feet per year. And as we started bumping up to that number, we thought, well, let's take a really close look at how we're reporting that and what that means. Is it customers? Is it end users? Is it meters? What is it? And essentially the answer is that any dedicated, unique connection to the district to which we serve potable water is counted. So it's any individual dwelling unit that has its own meter, any individual commercial building that has its own meter, and it also includes irrigation meters, which we were a little bit disappointed to learn. But because we serve potable water to irrigation customers, those are counted. So as of December 2021, after reviewing the accounts closely, we counted 2,566 residential accounts, 299 commercial accounts, and 83 irrigation accounts. So as of December,
how many irrigation?
83.
83, thank you.
And just on the irrigation, I want to just clarify, irrigation doesn't, in our case, isn't like an ag use. It's a lot of commercial customers use an irrigation meter for their outdoor water use so that they don't get billed for sewer based on the outdoor water use. Yeah, landscape.
Right. Yeah, at this time in the district, we don't have any dedicated agricultural meters. That's right. So the total then is 2,948 meters for individual customers as of December 2021.
Do virtual meters count towards that because they do pay the monthly fee?
They do not count because it's not a physical connection that water is readily available to them. Yes, we crossed those right out. So we're looking at, so I also looked at then what we have in the works, what's under construction, how close some of these projects are to obtaining meters. And the closest project in terms of being ready to obtain additional meters is Templeton Place 2. That's been under construction for a while now, and they have those they actually have those meter boxes ready for those meters to be set. So that's definitely going to happen this year. That's going to be a total of 38 additional meters. There's 40 water units, but 2 of those units are shared within meters. So there's going to be 38 individual water accounts that will be added from that project. We have a hotel project that's coming online. In that case, they have 1 commercial meter and 1 irrigation meter. So that'll just add 2. And then we have a couple of mixed use projects that we anticipate going into construction soon, where we're adding another, looks like another 8 units plus various ADUs that we have in the works that'll be required to have their own meters. So within the course of the next year, it looks like we will reach that 3,000 customer count.
Why do ADUs count? I thought they were part of the main structure. I thought they would just consider 1 meter for the ADUs.
So it depends on what kind of construction it is. There's an exception to the requirement for having a separate meter that includes using a portion of an existing structure. So if an ADU uses or converts part of an existing structure, then it's exempt from the requirement to install its own meter. However, new construction for a new ADU requires its own individual meter and new service connection.
And they don't have to be on a wait list for that either?
That's correct.
So they could just get, okay.
That is correct. Mm-hmm.
So we've been dealing with
that's like, going to be.
We're dealing with something like maybe 10 of those a year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ballpark.
Yeah. There's a real strong interest. You can imagine with the prices of real estate that we're seeing a lot of those.
Yeah, I can see that. At least 10, 20.
So once we reach that threshold, the requirements within the water code are that we develop our own urban water management plan within 1 year of the time that we reach that threshold. So in addition to that, there will be a water shortage contingency plan that's to be developed as part of that urban water management plan. And then annually there's water loss audit reports, annual water loss reports. Conservation reporting will be required monthly. And then annually, a water supply and demand assessment is required. And a new component, urban water use objectives and commercial performance measures will be due annually. So there's increased effort that will be required for the reporting once we develop the plan.
So we're gonna have a big effort once we hit this threshold. And to prepare for that, we have included in the draft budget funding to do the initial urban water management plan. And then there's ongoing requirements monthly and annually that exceed what we do today. They're not entirely different. They're just more onerous than what we're doing now. So it's going to be a bigger effort going forward once we cross this threshold.
So are we getting a consultant for that?
We would get some help in drafting the plan itself. That's what the funding would be for.
The GSA plan was back, huh? I gotta deal with this.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. So, but you're right. What you brought up is a good point. That's, actually what we're trying to figure out is, the state's just adopting new rules like over the last week, and I think on June 10th, so another hearing comes up, and I'm trying to figure out what of these new rules are we gonna have to follow, and we might be, some of them it looks like we'll be able to escape from for the next year or two because we're not in that category yet, but because it's imminent. Our plan is to put funding in the budget and actually start working on the RFP portion early on.
Yeah.
We don't want to wait and then be on deadline of this 1 year clock counting down and then be in trouble, because this is our first time doing it. And then after that, they're required to be updated. I think every 5 years.
Yeah, on a 5-year schedule.
Yeah, every 5 years they have to be updated. So yeah, there'll be some new obligations for the district once we cross that threshold. But we wanted to kind of share those with you, talk about why that's in the budget and what we expect to occur. So our plan would be to request funding in the budget. Once it's been approved, we'll do some of the background work again before we hit the 3,000. And then because it's essentially impossible to prevent, we want to get out ahead of it a little bit. I mean, it's not treated like an emergency, but we want to get out ahead of it so that we're not waiting until we're told that you've only got 30 more days to get it submitted or something.
So you'll send out an RFP for the consultant for this. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. Once we have a chance to evaluate what would be required, we have a little bit of time to really dial that in.
Does the gentleman, consultant that helped us with the GSA plan, does he do this kind of?
Mike Cornelius with GEI? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But the requirements for us are not any different than anybody else. There's a lot of folks out there that are qualified to do this. Virtually everyone who's bigger than us is doing these already.
Yeah.
So it's not super unique. Although I will say our water supply is very unique for how small we are. We have a lot of strings attached to our supplies. We can only use the permit water certain times of the year, only so much per month, only so many cubic feet per day can come out of each of the permit water. Our Selby water is only retrievable a certain time, certain months later. So it's our arrangement is far more complicated than most agencies that are our size.
It's more complicated, but I feel like we have a pretty good handle on it, having been doing these water supply buffer models
Yeah.
annually, we've really sort of gotten our arms around what our
Yeah, we got it, but I'm
supply
saying the consultants are gonna have to start from scratch probably, unless they haven't, somebody's worked with us before. Because it's just, yeah, I think we're in much better shape than we were years ago in terms of having a good understanding, and we're tracking all of these uses a lot more closely in terms of, especially the outstanding meters than we were say 10 years ago.
You know, who knows? We'll learn more. We want to make sure we get something out of it, not just fulfill a regulatory obligation. Yeah, it's just unfortunately, like with I guess a lot of other things, there's just comes a lot of reporting and regulations and things like that.
More bureaucracy.
Yeah, more bureaucracy. All right. Okay. Well, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Any questions?
No. I look forward to having more brought forth before the committee, and certainly I'm sure the board will get an update on this as well.
Yeah, and I do think this is an item that the committee can, as we're developing it, the committee would have a role in terms of maybe selecting the team, and if there's some check-in points about what we need to do. Now, just keep in mind, a lot of the components of this plan are things that we've already have in some way, shape, or form. They're just not consolidated.
Yeah.
Work like this supply contingency plan. Well, we have that in our water code. It's just, it might have to be reformulated a little bit or placed into the plan. So you mentioned everybody's required to go to a level 2, right? Well, we have levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 already. We have a level 2. It's just not in our urban water management plan because we don't have one. It's in our water code.
Oh, okay. Well,
so if we were ordered to go to level 2, we could do it.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, we have to do it as opposed to right now we have the option of just looking at our individual situation.
It's your decision as opposed to somebody else's decision.
Yeah.
That's the
So keeping that in mind, actually, that's kind of a good time because maybe you want to be, when we go through this, we want to be really careful about what's in these various levels because if we can be ordered to go to level 2, even if we're in good shape, we want to make sure that that's something that's not going to be overly disruptive to our community.
Yes.
Although it might still have targets for supply or demand reduction.
Yeah.
So do you think we should just take a look and see how our level 2 aligns with the state?
Yeah, I think that'll be part of this effort.
Yeah, we'll look at everything.
Yeah. But I mean, in advance of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, these were done. Our demand reduction strategy was implemented in compliance with state law in like 2014 when the last drought was gearing up. There was requirements of even non-urban water suppliers to have a plan that had target reductions. So that's when ours was implemented, or was updated, I guess, at that point in time. So it's not that old.
So there's funding in the budget that's being presented on Tuesday for this particular item.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I think since you're asking, I'm going to just tell you, we programmed $45,000 for the management plan.
Yeah.
Is our packet ready, by the way?
This one has been on the rest. Yeah, the budget.
So I was gonna pick it up.
Yeah.
The special meeting packet is.
Okay, good. All right. Good. Well, thank you again. And then I appreciate it and looking forward to hearing more about this. All right, next item, Selby and Cemento Water.
Yeah, we wanted to add this as just a discussion item since you were here today, because this was again, I'll give you this sort of very high level, that's a bad word, Reader's Digest version of what we've gone through over the last several years. So Selby was developed as a wastewater disposal site, right, for future retrieval. Then when the Nacimiento project came online, it was decided that the Nazi turnout would be sited at Selby because there was excess capacity there that we weren't using for wastewater. And that's been that way for 12 years now. And we've been using it there. When the East Side Force Main project was gearing up to come online, I think it was the fall of 2018, we decided to not take water during the course of the winter, that fall, because we wanted to ready ourselves for this new flow of wastewater And there were concerns, and I'm sure you recall, about how well would Selby handle this higher flow. So we essentially turned off. We have a lot of control of Nasi. We can turn it on, turn it off as it's fit. Even though we end up paying for it more or less if we use it or not. We just don't pay the energy costs if we don't take it. So we turned it off. Water came. You might, that first season's bad example because you might remember we had some challenges at the wastewater plant. We really maxed out Selby with a lot of imperfectly treated wastewater, and we started using the this irrigation spray field. You recall that we put some funding in for that. It's a plan B essentially. We started using that. We enhanced our maintenance protocols at Selby at the time, and added a bunch of improvements to the wastewater facility the following year. So now we're in a, so summer of 2019, we didn't take any Nasi water. We went to 2020, we upgraded the wastewater plant with aeration and added that additional treatment pond, and saw improved results, and started taking, we had realized we had some capacity, and knowing that we could turn Nasi on and off on a moment's notice, took some water in 2020. 2021, we made it, we planned on taking water for most of the season, not the wettest part of the year. We're most concerned about the winter time because there's some restrictions at Selby.
Kind of 5 days we had this year.
Well, so we don't know that in advance, but so yeah, at the beginning, right? We're just maybe 5, but last year was even worse. But when the conditions, the underlying ground is wet, there's just reduced percolation. The ground doesn't take it as fast because it's already wet. And then if we had high groundwater, which is a rare issue, but it does occur. Like let's say the river flows high, flows for a long time, the groundwater condition becomes high, we can actually be ordered to turn so not discharge any more wastewater because there's not enough distance between the underlying groundwater and the Selby ponds. That doesn't happen often, but so we don't take water now in the winter, and probably won't for a while. That's our plan, is not to take Nasi water in the winter. That might change, I guess, if we had total confidence in our abilities, but to continue to perk water. But we didn't take water over the 2020-21 winters, took it back in 2021, and actually we're quite successful. We took all the water we ordered, and we were able to percolate all the wastewater in 2021. Very late in the year last year, I think December 1st, we turned off Nasi. You might recall we had a really rainy end of December. It did lead to some, you recall we have some sort of temporary or trial filtration out there. And it's not a perfect design system. It works pretty well under good conditions, but when we were getting a lot of inflows, we bypassed the filtration and the outflows because the pond levels were rising. And so we bypassed filtration and sent that water to Selby. So it was, again, we hit a patch of some imperfectly treated wastewater at the end of last year. That led to the ponds getting pretty full at the end of this winter period because they weren't percolating as well. And there's probably a number of reasons why, but we were not in a position to take Nasi water throughout the spring because we had too much wastewater in all of the ponds. We didn't have any capacity. So Justin came up with a great idea of, we got one of the ponds that we've historically used for Nasi Meadow, well maintained, and we rented a pump, and we pumped the other pond close to dry here just a few weeks ago.
That's right, yeah.
So G to F. And so the goal is to get us into a situation where we can provide sufficient maintenance before using that pond again. And so that's should be able to be done this month.
Yes, yeah, and just beforehand, we had just maintenance F. That's what we're taking as of yesterday. We're taking Nasi Meadow water to pond F right now at Selby, and so we maintenanced F, and it's taking it. It's doing well, and so in moving the waters from G to F, it built up slightly, and then it has been able to percolate. Yeah, even all those waters that were in G over to
months.
F.
Yeah,
It's-
so
it's
that water was like 6 months old, right?
Yeah, so we're hoping to, here shortly, we're going to get into G and we're gonna maintenance it as well. And then be able to transfer Nassau water over into the G and be able to take it for, for some time. Yeah, send us
Nassau
up.
water?
Yeah, the Nassau
Yeah, for
water.
the rest
But
of
we're
the-
taking it right now. Right now, we're taking 200,000 gallons a day as of yesterday. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
So yeah, and without getting too far into it, our latest water buffer models expect us to continue to be able to take a limited amount of water at Selby. So if we can't abandon this effort, we have to, even though there's not current demand for it, we have to demonstrate, in my mind, we have to demonstrate that we can continually do it. Not year round, but during a chunk of the year. And so that we're doing so, that'll allow us to continue to keep that assumption valid. Hopefully we'll be able to take enough to keep the current assumption valid going forward. So I think, maintenance is a key out of Selby.
So keeping, absolutely, the maintenance. Something else that we were happy, because there was a moment there, I think in springtime, where we were looking to the spray field and maybe having to use the spray field. Keeping up that maintenance, in the future, having to that, it's possible that some sort of a tractor replacement may be in line, maybe makes sense to be able to get in there and keep up with the maintenance in a quicker sort of way. A larger piece of equipment to be able to take off that surface layer, but then also scarify. Selby is so vital to our success, just being able to get in there and do the necessary maintenance on a regular basis. And we're trying to do everything we can to keep up with the maintenance, keep off the spray field, keep that water perking. And now we've just started up Nassau as well. So
that's important, because 2 or 3 years down the road, where you're
Yeah,
gonna get that water, water is gonna be there for us.
2 or 3, you got it right. That's not long. Hope you're not thirsty before then, but yeah, it's coming. It's good. So anyway, we're a little later than we would ideally be taking it earlier, because we did have a pretty dry winter, but we had some circumstances that made it difficult for that one pond to take really F and G were full of wastewater for many months and weren't working real well. They definitely, over time they plug and they have to dry out and be maintained.
To me, it's amazing how the ponds are so close to each other, yet there's one that doesn't do well, the other one that does well. It's just
pretty astonishing.
Yeah, it's like that's
But they all do much better if the water quality we put in there is clear.
And that storage pond that we use now on the wastewater side, that helps with that, right? Or is that?
Yeah, no, it absolutely improved. It allowed us to improve the effectiveness of the treatment plant.
Yeah.
It still isn't getting our suspended solids down to the level that we think we need to be at.
Yeah.
So this is not something that we'll see any impact on in our February review of the buffer model.
It shouldn't change it dramatically.
It will change it?
It shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we already made
Not
this.
at this point in time.
No.
Yeah, we made assumptions after we had a successful year. Since originally when the East Side Force Main came online, we made assumptions that we weren't going to be able to use Selby for Nassau. But once we proved that we could, we made assumptions about how much Nassau water we could take at Selby, and so that's included in there now.
That's
And
already
we updated it annually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're
okay. All right.
Every agency is different, but in contacting and trying to get Nassau turned on, and that instantaneous, just get a SCADA system and turn on the system. They also referred to a Cascade Mutual Water Company was coming on at the exact same day. So we both of our entities came on to start taking Nassau this year at the same time.
Interesting.
Cool. That's awesome.
So yeah, we have a lot of I mean, one of the benefits. Or one of the issues with Nassau that gives us a lot of flexibility is we can turn that off on a day's notice or even a moment's notice. So if it becomes a concern, we have control. We can dial it up, dial it down, turn it off, turn it on. And so we just need to turn it off in time to get all the ponds maintained before the wet season.
So right now, Nassau is pretty low in water right now. So I mean,
25%.
So, I mean, are we expecting to be able to use NASA? I mean, is there a limit where they said, nope, sorry, you
Yes,
can't take any water?
there is a limit, but we're, the forecast is we won't reach it this year.
Yeah.
But probably
But
next year.
Well, I
I mean,
mean,
unless we've got some real rain, I think that at some point
What's
it is
that?
gonna be,
Limit.
we have the sort of the, if you want to describe this, we're the first in water, the lowest, our intake pumps go lower than the outflow to the dam. So even when they hit what Monterey County calls a minimum pool, or even there's even, that means they don't release anymore. There's actually a dead pool.
Yeah.
They cannot release. It's physically impossible to take water out. Our intake pump for the Nasi project doesn't rely on releases. It actually has got a big straw that goes into the lake, and it goes deeper than the lowest release point. So we can continue to draw water, down very, very low. I think down to like 15,000 acre feet in the lake.
Oh, wow.
So it would, but I'm not sure we're going to want to,
yeah.
because there's some concerns that the water quality at that point will be so poor that we're not going to want that water. But
I
let's
could
hope we don't get there.
imagine all the stuff that's down there.
So yeah, I mean, right now the forecast for this year's is good. We're not at risk, and really because of the way we take and claim water, the collective Nasi group, they can hit minimum pool and we can take it for almost a whole other year. We have rights to, but again.
And so we just turned it on, this last week?
Just yesterday.
Just yesterday. And how long will we have that Nasi water coming our way?
Oh, we're counting on through the rest of the year, or to whenever we want to turn it
I
off.
think last year we turned it off at the end of November.
Yes.
Sometime around.
Yeah, and if we start getting, yes. Rain.
But you know what? We want to be flexible, because if in fact we're in a position where we're confident we can keep taking water because of the maintenance of the ponds and the amount of water that's out there and the long-term weather forecast, we can keep taking it for 4 weeks longer, or even dial it back. We can take it year round. We have the right to. It's just that our big effort has been to preserve capacity for wastewater in the winter.
And then when you're maintaining it, are you trying to make them deeper by any chance to be able to put more water in there, or no? Is that there?
Not necessarily. I think that the maintenance efforts are mostly just to take that first step, and then that so many couple of inches that it almost cracks. It almost cracks the surface, and so to remove that, and then to come through with very shallow rippers to just kind of scarify the surface, just to encourage that percolability. Yeah.
So it's,
In fact, there's a requirement that we not be, I think it's 8 feet. 8 feet.
It is, yeah.
oh, really?
We have to be, at least 8 feet above groundwater.
So we're very
Okay.
conscientious about,
Deep.
about that.
Okay, 8 feet above the ground. Okay. All right, cool. Well, thank you. That's good that you guys are working so hard, and now they're trying to get the Nasi water, and everything is percolating. So that's really good.
No, we're looking good. We're looking good.
I'm a long ways.
Hopefully no issues with the pipeline.
Hopefully not the Nasi, yeah. Well, I mean, our track record has not been superb.
It's not been good.
So
It's been okay though last year, huh?
No,
yeah,
last year.
2 years ago we had a break.
Was it 2 years ago? But it took months.
Yeah.
It's like almost a
to
year
get it
to
repaired.
That's the problem.
Well, we've had the two breaks that we've had have both been, the two significant issues have both been in river undercrossings where the pipe does this, and so they're very complicated to fix. Both cases we lined the pipe with another pipe. So they took like 8 or 9 months each time to fix.
Okay, cool. All right then. Well, if there are no other questions, that was the last item on our agenda. Then I guess we could. That's it. End the meeting. Yeah. All right. That was good. Thank you, guys.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you for all the info.